waited 60 years for the Wisnesses to finally arrive at Minot, North Dakota, and it was well worth the wait because we got to marry into the family, and that was a real pleasure. I have enjoyed doing this over the years, and it's not only because sometimes the people who are up here send me a present in the mail later on. For example, we had, you will recall, one of the leaders in the Tupperware company sign over Fenna 2 weeks after we were here. This huge box arrived at our house, and it's full of Tupperware. Then you will remember that 2 years ago, Doug's friend, Nathan Mirvold, who was described by Bill Gates as the smartest man he ever knew, came here, and he provided innovations, inventions, and just a brilliant guy. He also has written books. So he sent me his book, which is actually a very good book. It's a photography book, and it includes pictures of modernist cuisine, and it's really very good. And I'm going to put this on loan to the Wisness family. I was going to give it to the Norwegians who came so far, but the book is so heavy, I worried about how much you'd have to pay to get it onto the airplane and then get it back to me next year. So the Wisnesses are going to have this for a year. And I'm not asking, it would be totally inappropriate. I know they're ranchers, I know they run quite a bit of cattle. It would be totally inappropriate if next week you sent me a side of beef to my house at 1216 Crestview Lane in Bismarck. Totally inappropriate. Please don't even think of doing anything like that. We have these new ethics rules who are in place now, so don't do that. If I'm not asked to come back, if I am asked to come back next year, would you please bring it back then for me so I can lend it to the next person? And if I'm not asked to come back and do this again next year, then you can mail it to me at my house, which I said again is 1216 Crestview, Bismarck. So here for the purpose of the induction, we have two wonderful people here. Jean Mogan-Wold, who will be first up. She is a family historian of the Wisnesses. So Jean, please welcome Jean.
I am pleased and honored to be a part of this awards ceremony this evening. Andrew and Amelia were my grandparents and very special people to me. And you'll pardon me if I read part of this because I'm afraid I will leave something very important out unless I read it. Andrew, or A.S. Wisness, and his baptized name was Andreas Herman Marius Wisness, was born in 1881 in Ålesund, Norway, to Sjur and Berglatt. His father was a supplier of boats and an accountant. And Andrew came to America when he was 16 years old, first coming to an uncle at Hickson and then to an uncle at Maddock. And while he was at Hickson, he went to school a couple months, and he also went to the AC. I am assuming that this is where he learned to read and write English, which he did very well. In 1903, he decided he should come west because he was 21 years old then, and he could file on a homestead quarter. They couldn't find appropriate land around Makodian Plaza, so then a land locator took them into McKenzie County. And of course, McKenzie County is the island empire because you have to cross a major river to get into the county, except for a very piece of the corner of Southwest County. So he filed in 1903 on lots 7, 8, 9, and 10 of Section 3 in Keene Township. And he got the patent for this quarter of land in 1910. And he came out to the homestead a little later in the summer of 1903 with a load of lumber and a borrowed hammer and saw to build the homestead shanty. Through the years, he was able to purchase other adjoining tracts of land and some tracts of land that were a distance away. Amelia was born to Eric and Guri Elliston in rural Spring Grove, Minnesota. Andrew and Amelia met and married while working for the Wissnesses in Maddock. In 1906, they moved to live permanently on the homestead. After crossing the Missouri on a cable ferry, Amelia said she would never do that again. But a few years later, she was so lonesome for her family in Minnesota that she did cross the river and got on the train at Tioga or Ray and went for a visit. A.S. and Amelia had 9 children. Their second child died before he was a year old of spinal meningitis. She cut up her wedding dress to line the casket, and he was buried in Good Hope Cemetery next to the First Lutheran Church at Keene. The 3 oldest girls, Gladys, Sylvia, and Amy, were country school teachers, and the younger girls, Lily and Emma, were secretaries. Arno served in the Army during World War II and was an accountant, farmer, and did many other things. Lester, after finishing 9 years of school, was a farmer, rancher, all his life, working with his father and sons. Henry, the youngest child, was a civil engineer, and his funeral was last week in Bismarck. He was 96 years old. Emma, the youngest, next to the youngest child, was 100 in May and lives in California. Andrew helped organize Keene Township, and he was on the township board for 51 years, 38 of them as clerk. He served on many boards and was involved in many organizations throughout the county. The church on the hill, about 2.5 miles from the homestead, it's now First Lutheran Church of Keene, was an important part of homestead life. Andrew was on the building committee and was the church secretary for 30 years. Amelia belonged to Ladies' Aid and helped the children with their Christian education. And I mentioned the Good Hope Cemetery alongside the church is where many members of the Wisness family are buried. In the late 50s, 3 oil wells were drilled, which now, of course, are plugged and abandoned. But at the current time, there are 8 producing oil wells in Section 3. Lester married Gladys Felland in 1945, and they raised 4 children, Paul, Gary, Jane, and Milo. Paul served as a medic in Vietnam, married Sandy Sanis, and farmed and ranched on the Wisness property until he retired in 2010. They have 2 children, Brittany and Britt. Son Gary lives in a group home in Williston, and daughter Jane married Dwight Mangle, and she was a math teacher for many years and is now retired. And Dwight and Jane have 2 daughters, and they live in Arizona. Milo was born at home during a raging North Dakota blizzard. Both grandmothers helped with the delivery. Milo married Julie Stenjum and settled on the homestead to farm and ranch with his brother and father. Bo, the oldest son, and Chase, the youngest son, work at farming the extensive lands owned by the Wisness family. Their son Levi died after a battle with cancer, and he was a champion bulldogger. Bo married Heather Schilder, and they have 4 children, Amelia, Clara, Charlie, and Hazel. These are the 5th generation of Wisness farmers. Many think that Charlie will be the next farm operator, but you never know. Who says the girls can't be farmers and ranchers? Chase married Morgan Meyer and operates the Wisness property with his brother Bo. Chase recently got his pilot's license, so the family has added that to their many accomplishments.
So, thank you, Jean. And so, please welcome, for the purpose of making your presentation, Lieutenant Governor Brent Sanford.
Thank you, Attorney General Stenjum. It's a joy to be here. When I heard that the Wisness family is receiving the Hostfest Scandinavian American Hall of Fame Award, I knew that Sandy and I had to be here. And I needed to say a few words. I know it's hard to give a politician a 2-minute time frame, but I've got this in a minute 45, all right? But I need to be here because for over 4 generations and now into 5, the branches of my family tree are so intertwined with Wisness stories and interactions that I could write my own book about them. Could all of you raise your hand if you're related to the Wisnesses over on this side? It's quite a few. I'm getting a head count for the family picture later on. All right, thank you very much. I also need to offer a few words because they're my friends. They've been friends to at least 4 generations of my family. I could stand up here for a half hour describing coaching Julie in softball and Rick Wisness being my dad's golf partner, and all the car dealers, deals and repair deals with my grandfathers, and Paul and Paul and Milo and Lester and Bob and sons, but I have 2 minutes, I won't. But I can tell you that when a person thinks of working the land, working hard, playing hard, being a good neighbor in McKenzie County, you think of the Wisnesses. When you go to a community meeting, you see Wisnesses taking an active role in leadership. When you go to a funeral, you see Wisnesses as pallbearers. When you open up your business in the morning, you see the Wisnesses getting a jump on the day. Whether it was either of my grandfather's repair and automotive businesses, my cousin Dixie's Cafe in Keene, or my own stint running the family business at S&S Motors in Watford City, you more than likely would see a Wisness at some point that day or the next. And not just to buy something, maybe not to buy something, we told a few stories of that earlier, right, Paul? But maybe to give their suggestion on an important topic, the next county, school, or city meeting, or maybe just to stop by and say hi. For 5 generations in McKenzie County, this has been the case, with no end in sight. Many Scandinavian families came to McKenzie County under the same circumstances, to homestead on 160 acres and prove their claim, as did all 4 Norwegian branches of my family, and 2 branches of my wife Sandy's family tree. 90% of those Scandinavian homesteader families aren't there anymore. But what the Wisnesses have done is not only stick it out, but excel, grow their operation, filling out the family tree, working the land. But even more special, they continue to counsel us, convince us, play with us, grieve with us, and lead us into the 21st century, into an even better future. When you think of the land, the place of McKenzie County, you think of them. Thank you, Paul, Milo, Bo, Rick, Julie, Chase, Matthew, Brett. I'm missing names. I can't keep going. I'm trying to get to one's last name, Wisness. Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here to help you accept this award, receive an award for a job well done. Thank you very much.
They can't decide who wants to go. They're just rushing each other to get up there to the podium. So we'll start out with Paul. They want to speak. Come on over here. Well, I'm Paul.
Lester and Gladys. There's a lot of things that Gene said that I can mimic, I guess. I was raised in the same yard as my grandpa Andrew lived and worked in. My folks had a house right there. So I followed my grandfather around a lot from the time I was a little kid, asking a lot of questions. Luckily, he was a patient man, and he answered most of the questions, I think. He used to ask me, or he used to tell me a lot of stories about what it was like in Norway when he was a child. And of course, I loved to hear him. He loved to tell stories, and I loved to hear him, like I said. I enjoyed being around my grandfather and learning farming and ranching from him and my father. After some years, I went to NDSU in Fargo. I served the United States Army for 2 years, one of which I spent in Vietnam as a combat medic. I married my wife Sandy in '73. We raised 2 children on our farm and ranch, and they're still there today. They both live just a little ways out of Watford. I had a good life farming and ranching with my dad, my brother Milo, and now I'm retired after 50 years of farming and ranching. That's pretty much my story.
Thank you, Paul. And now, Milo.
Hello, everyone. I appreciate the honor of getting inducted into the Hall of Fame here, and I feel very fortunate to be a part of the Wisness family and have known all 5 generations of Wisnesses, from my grandparents all the way down to my grandchildren. It's been a great honor. Quite a way of life we're having. My parents, Lester and Gladys, taught me the most about working hard and making right decisions, and when in turn instilled ethics in our 3 sons. My dad passed away a few years ago, but my mother is now living in the Watford City Good Shepherd home. She'll be 102 years old in a few days. My brother Paul and I worked very hard through our lives, along with our wives Sandy and Julie. We've been successful with the farming with the help of many trustworthy employees throughout the years. We have always had good relationships with businesses in Watford City, Keene, and Newtown. I'd like to share a little quick story. My grandpa, my dad, and I had long-standing relationships with Keene Garage, which was owned by Brett Sanford's grandpa, S&S Motors, which was your other grandpa and your dad. Had lots of dealings to do it. One year I came home from college, I think it was 1973, spring quarter, they were going on quarters, and from NDSU had to come home and help farm. And the price of durum went up that year. My dad made a deal with, I don't know if it was Bob Sanford or with Brett's dad, made a deal for a new tractor. He traded a bin of durum for a brand new versatile tractor. And every time they'd make a deal, they'd have to see who was going to pay the taxes. Dad wanted to pay have the Sanford pay the taxes, and of course they wanted Dad to pay, and he had no part of it. Paying the governor, by the way. It usually came down to a flip of the coin or a little dice game in the corner, and which of course was double or nothing. And I think who was ahead? I don't know who ever won.
The Wisness.
So I'm fortunate to have my wife, Julie Stengham, who came with the Stengham family property in Arnegard. Also my 2 sons, Bo and two sons, Bo and Chase, who are 100% Norwegian, and also with their wives Heather and Morgan, and their 4 beautiful grandchildren who are in the ranching and farming operation with us. So we're very proud of our Scandinavian heritage and don't miss a chance to talk about it. Thanks again to the committee for their great welcoming to Minot, and thanks Minot for having us too. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Milo. And Bo.
They said I could have the longest speech or the most minutes, but I'll try to keep it shorter than they did. As a 4th generation operator of the Wisness Ranch, it's obvious that I would not be here to have the opportunity to become a part of our business without my great-grandfather, my grandpa's hard work and dedication. But my father and uncle's generation is what impacted me and taught me the most. Let me start by saying thank you to my dad most of all, because without his patience and leadership, I would not have the ability to do what I do. So thank you, Dad. Uncle Paul, basically, you're like a second dad to me growing up. I got to watch and learn from you on a day-to-day basis, like I did my dad. Paul was ready to start slowing down in the farming and ranching about the same time that my wife and I decided to move back to the Keene area in 2007. This transition allowed me to pick up where he left off and began my family with the same lifestyle that I was raised. The farming and ranching occupation and lifestyle comes with very different timelines, seasons, work schedules, and demands than any other occupations do. Right now in the fall, when the combines are going, or can go, and the grain can be harvested, the days get very long and it takes all hands on deck to get the job done. In the winter, the cows need to be fed. Yes, kids, they need to be fed every single day. I know it gets a little old sometimes, but in the spring it never fails. The second you plan to head out the door to an event with the family, good old number 836, the heifer starts calving. She needs a little assistance, so things get delayed. And while the seasons continue to change, and I wasn't supposed to read that? Never mind. The other day, I just shortened my speech a little. The other day, one of my daughters needed help gluing something together, and I must have subconsciously been thinking about standing up here in front of you folks and saying something interesting. Because right then and there, I thought of the many characteristics of glue and how it relates to the women in our operation. Glue often goes unnoticed because most glue is clear. Glue blends in with its surroundings. The help of glue is often brought out in difficult and stressful moments, and glue is an essential role to keep things together. This sounds a lot like the role of my great-grandma Amelia, my grandma Gladys, my mom Julie, my aunt Sandy, my wife Heather, and my sister-in-law Morgan, that they've had in the Wisness family farm and ranch over the past years. They are truly the ones that I believe make the whole operation stick together and work so well. When the wheat is too tough to combine and we're frustrated, which has happened a lot recently, our wives remind us and continue to remind us that it will get done, and there's more to life than the last 500 acres that we swear we'll never get in the bin. When we make the last minute decision to brand the final bunch of calves down south at 3 p.m. and the women magically have a meal prepared for 30 at 6 p.m. and delivered to the branding crowd. Our favorite day of the year when we meet with our accountant and prepare our taxes, we show up to the appointment and see the farm and ranch finances have been completely organized and maintained. Now we know the Wisness men certainly did not pull that one off. And when our schedules are very long and long days turn into long weeks and long weeks turn into long months, our homes and our families continue to function and thrive because of the women. So although Paul and Milo, myself are sitting here at the head table to receive this amazing recognition, I'd also like to recognize and thank the glue of this operation, who no matter the season or workload, the farm and ranch are our constant factors, the wives. Thank you guys for everything.
Congratulations to the wonderful Wisness family. This is all about family, I mentioned before. And of course, when you think about sports,